birthday is the 10th, 4/10. Okay. So peanuts are a legume, and they're an annual. This geocarpy, growing up, I think I probably heard from people, oh yeah, well the peanut's actually a tuber. No, it's not. It is an honest-to-goodness fruit of it is a fertilized ovary. It is fruit. But how does it end up underground? And I didn't give the answer for this. So years ago, a friend of mine tried growing peanuts in his garden. Now, this far north, it's hard to get any kind of decent size because they need a fairly long growing season. They need pretty warm soil. You could probably do them in a protected, like a hoop house or something where you were warming the soil sort of artificially. They are a South American native. And what they do, those flowers are very, very ephemeral. They're very short-lived. So they open up, they get fertilized, and then they send out these long shoots, like feelers. They're called pegs. And those feelers kind of burrow into the ground. And at the end of that feeler is actually the fertilized ovary. And it's from that fertilized ovary. So it's a wandering ovary, which is a fascinating idea. Those ovaries travel into the soil, and there they develop that hard shell and the little actual seeds that we know within the hard shell, which are the peanuts themselves. So, and the species from which they are domesticated still exists in the wild. If you go to South America, it's Arachis monticola versus Arachis hypogea. We grow a lot of peanuts on this planet. They're very popular. They're a great source of protein. And we think of them... How have you eaten peanuts? Yeah, like a honey roast, like out of a can, just as a snack. So in this country, we typically grow them, we eat them either just out of hand as a snack food, honey roasted peanuts, salted peanuts, mixed nuts, whatever, or we eat them in the form of peanut butter. Those are pretty much the only ways we interact with them here. Globally, they are actually a much bigger deal in a lot of Africa and a lot of India and South America, where they're made into sauces and all kinds of things happen. So we don't do as much with peanuts as some people do. You also probably haven't thought about the fact that you may have interacted with peanuts in the form of peanut oil. Yeah. So if you've done any like deep fat frying of turkeys, peanut oil is your friend. Peanut oil has a very high flash point. It doesn't burst into flame easily. And so if you're doing a lot of frying, peanut oil really holds up the heat well. So it's a common one for big frying operations. In the U.S., there are 4 cultivars, and I don't care that you know what they are. But depending on whether you're growing something for nut butter or you're growing it for snacking or you're growing it for use in a candy, you would do different cultivars. And I don't know what the global cultivars are. That information actually came from the United States Peanut Association or Peanut Federation, which is a trade group for peanut farmers. A lot more peanuts are grown outside of the U.S. because, again, they're a much larger part of cuisine in other parts of the world. Has anybody here had peanut sauce? Okay. It's pretty common in like Thai and Indonesian cooking. A lot of you'll see it in Chinese cooking. A lot of sort of the Asian subcontinent, and you can make it pretty easily at home. Look up a recipe for peanut sauce. It's kind of fun. And if you go to a Chinese restaurant, you see cold sesame noodles. Those usually come in a peanut sauce. They can be spicy, not spicy, whatever. But again, because they're a legume, they fix nitrogen, so they can be part of a crop rotation. And actually, I've thought about doing them for that in some parts of my garden. Planting a section in peanuts one year just to get some soil improvement. It's kind of a novelty crop. See if I get any sized peanuts. I remember my friends they were little teeny peanuts. Because it is hard to grow them here. And let me get this diagram sort of so you can see it. That shows the plant and the pegs that come down off of the flower places. So those are not growing on a root. Those are actually growing attached to these pegs, these sort of filaments that come from the blossom itself. Okay, so the last 2 of our legumes are lentils. These are Lens culinaris. Culinaris, the culinary, a food that is eaten. And these are a huge staple in most of the Asian subcontinent, India and Pakistan, Bangladesh. If you go to an Indian restaurant, you're going to see lots of things that are marked D-A-L, pronounced dal. And that's actually the Indian word, or Urdu word, I believe, for the lentil. So you have dishes that are just basically called, this dal, that dal. Well, it really just means, lentil with this, lentils with that. And they're kind of cooked into a soup. These are something that humans have been growing as long or longer, possibly, as we've been growing wheat. This is one of the other sort of cornerstones of agriculture. And I found some sources that say that there's evidence that lentils were grown 12,000 years ago, but I can't find a really good trail on that, and I'm suspicious of any date older than 10 for agricultural products. Not nearly as many lentils grown on the planet as peanuts, about 5 million tons, but that's still a lot of little lentils. And then we have the peas, Pisum sativum. And again, sativum or sativa just means cultivated variety. So this is another one that comes out of the Fertile Crescent, the Middle East, that part of the world. And the peas that we eat, that's a pretty new thing. That's in the last 100 or 200 years, eating them fresh. For most of humans' history with peas, they were eaten dried and ground into porridge. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold. That is a porridge made of dried ground peas. And the closest thing we have today would be like a split pea soup, which some people love, some people hate. You can also now, in the whole rush of get more protein, blah, 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 some of the protein supplements now incorporate pea protein. The legumes tend to be a good source of protein. If you think about it, they're fixing nitrogen, and nitrogen is the backbone of a lot of proteins. Those amino acids are nitrogen-containing compounds. And what's interesting, so worldwide production fluctuates tremendously. Several sources said worldwide production peaked in the mid-1990s at 16 million tons. And it's been on this sort of decline, this fluctuating decline ever since. And I could not find any good explanation for why we're apparently eating fewer peas. I don't know. But they're a wonderful crop. You can eat them a lot of different ways. And, they're nice because they're a cool weather crop. So they're very common in like English cuisine. And of course, England being up in the North Atlantic is a little bit cooler, a little bit rainier, more like the Pacific Northwest here. And actually the Pacific Northwest grows, I think, the majority of peas that are grown in this country. And at one time I knew a woman when I lived in Arizona. She was from Washington State, and her job in high school, and she was very proud of this, she had driven the pea truck. And she got to drive a giant truck loaded with, thousands of bushels of peas to market. And that was, there were other people who drove pea trucks, but she drove the pea truck. I thought that was really cool. So that wraps up our legumes. So now, if you can grab a Newcomb's Field Guide, we're going to head out for a little bit of botanizing, I'm hoping.